What's going on, Tooth and Tail fans around the globe? Today, I have a very special video for you that is near and dear to my heart. I'm going to be pulling back the curtains, and showing you guys how to play one of my favorite decks, the Triple Tier 3 deck. Now, in my opinion, the Triple Tier 3 deck is the most dangerous double-edged deck that I like to run consistently. And what I like about it so much is the imbalance that it creates in the game. If I have Triple Tier 3 and someone has a pretty standard meta deck, they're so different that when they clash, somebody's going to win. It might be you, it might be me, but I typically choose to go for it during high pressure situations. So like match point of a set between someone, like we're 1-1 in a best of 3 or we're 2-2 in a best of 5. When the pressure is really, when the boiler cooker is really on, it's just difficult to make decisions in those situations. And it's also difficult to bring yourself to take a deck that's not meta, right? Like if you knew that I'm gonna bring a Triple Tier 3 deck, you might bring an anti-deck and then, you know, be just fine at dealing with it. But for things like match point or maybe the opening match, when people just want to kind of like ease into a set, those could be the best times for the Triple Tier 3 deck, because it's when people aren't suspecting it, and it's just going to be harder to counter, and the game plan is much easier to execute for us than it is to respond to the idea of Triple Tier 3. So I'm going to show you 3 games. One game where we don't actually win, but we do get to see the strategies that we want to aim for. So let's go ahead and start with offensive utility. And in this game, we are playing Deep Sea Sasha, and we have Squirrel, Skunk, Owl, Fox, Wolf, and MG. Now, most of the time, when I take this Triple Tier 3 deck, I like to take Wire instead of MG. But we're taking MG here, and we're gonna speed the openers of these games along, because that's not the most important educational material of these games. But taking a look at the map, on my side, right, there's a couple points of entry to my base, but it's all on one side, as opposed to like over here and over here being access. Because the more space you have to cover with defense, the more expensive it is to try to get your Triple Tier 3 out. Because the whole strategy here is that we want to turtle inside of 1 or 2 bases, try to get a wolf out, try to get a wolf to buff warrens of a fox and a owl, and then push it into our opponent with Triple Tier 3. So, moving just along, both of us opened up with 8 farms. Pretty casual, nothing too aggressive. I go for an expand. Deep Sea Sasha goes for an expand. And the reason I elected to go for a second base before starting to put down my first wolf, and the wolf is the tier 3 that you want to put down first, is because I felt like both of these were pretty defensible. So whenever I can defend 2 mils with my defenses and then go into Triple Tier 3, I usually elect to fill up half of a mil. And here we go. I chose to fill up 5 farms instead of 8, and then go for a wolf at the 2-minute and 30-second mark. Whereas my opponent has elected to go for 6 and will probably fully fill their mill. So they scouted me immediately, which isn't too ideal. Gives them time to respond accordingly, and they are gonna eco up and then probably go for a fox, I imagine. Yep. Perfectly reasonable response. And so here we are. And now, we went ahead and put down an owl warren and a fox warren. Now this is pretty greedy. It's usually good to only go 2 at a time, and then once you've gotten 2 out, go for your 3rd. Because very often your opponent is going to press into you and try to kill you before your Triple Tier 3 gets out. In this circumstance, because we saw that our opponent was also waiting for a fox, we didn't think that that was going to be a concern. But nonetheless, you do have to do your due diligence, because your opponent can kind of just decide at any point to come into your base. So this was a greedier choice by me to go for the triple tier 3. But here we go. Our opponent, army graph wise, they don't have a lot. Gonna try to take down this this MG, and they'll succeed. So it's a good exchange for them, but they did have to go home. And that's way more important than winning exchanges straight out, is buying yourself as much time as you can to try to get these triple tier 3 out. So looking at our opponent, one of the biggest costs that's going to happen when you try to get triple tier 3 out is your opponent is going to get more eco than you. See? They're going to have time for it because we can't really advance out of our base to do any shenanigans. We're too busy trying to get our triple tier 3 out. And that's one of the reasons we have to get so much value out of engagements once our triple tier 3 are out. Because we're going to be down in economy. But if we can win one big army fight where they lose the bulk of their army, we can just go into their base and kind of wreck them or force them to keep pushing us into us as we kite. And those are usually the best times. So here we go. I've got all my triple tier 3 out. And look at that. His units completely distracted by the owls, the owl mice. Gives my fox and my skunk time, even my squirrels, to get a lot of damage down on them. Notice their fox hasn't managed to target any of my tier 3, and that's because it's hard. And my units, super fast. They can chase down, right? And so you saw whenever he tried to push into me with his fox to get a snipe, I just retreated. Skunk gas, doing so much work on the tier 1 so that my fox can focus on what's important. Big units. This mill under heavy fire. My triple tier 3 is still alive, so if you look at the army graph, his army graph has gone down while my army graph has stayed pretty much the same, because my army graph is largely consisted of just 3 units. So as long as they stay alive, my army is relatively at its max capacity. Now, you gotta be careful. See, my owl took a hit, so I retreated it. Made sure that it's staying a little bit behind the rest of my my units. I'm gonna have to body block with some other units. So I got greedy here. I tried to focus down my opponent's fox and end up losing my wolf. Oh, not my wolf, my owl. And so that turned into a turning point in this game where my micro wasn't as precise. Look, I got too caught up in targeting down the fox. So even though my army graph was, look at that, it wasn't even comparable. If I had just slowed down and not gotten too greedy trying to take out the fox, I would have won this game. But that's the mistake we made. And we try to hold here, right? But we can't quite get our defenses up in time. I'm doing my best to get my tier 3 out as fast as I can. But my opponent's counterattack kind of just proved to be faster than I could resupply. But we're back in business, so let's see what happens. I have very little army, and I also have to fight into some high ground. And my fox already took 1 hit. So my 1 health fox, pretty difficult to make it work. I've got a 1 health wolf, which goes down. And now I'm just in pretty dire straits, though my fox is alive. And I kind of wanted to engage, but the problem is, no money. As opposed to my my opponent, who has a lot of money. And so they can just finally reinforce their army, eco up, and that the next time we fight, it's not even close, right? I don't have nearly as much army as them anymore. But there was one point in the game where we had it completely in the bag before we fumbled it, and that was when triple tier 3 was at its strongest, right? Is that moment pretty soon after it pops, right? My tier 3, there's my first tier 3, there's my second tier 3, there's my third. In that moment, we pushed and had so much success before we mismanaged the situation. And that was offensively how you want to micro your triple tier 3 when you're attacking, right? You're kiting, poke a little bit, retreat a little bit, poke a little bit. If your units take damage, try to back them up, but do the best that you can to keep them alive. and move around constantly, right? Like constantly be moving. Don't just be content to just sit and do like a full confrontation, like face to face. That's not where this thrives. This thrives in the kite and the chase. All right, now let's take a look at a game versus Heirloom. Once again, we have a map that has multiple points of entry into our base, which makes this not a fantastic candidate for tier 3, for triple tier 3, but it is still possible. The worst case scenario is when there's nothing but open space, because it's too expensive to cover just straight open space. So like if all of this was just flat land, it would really suck, because it's too expensive to cover that much area with defense. But now we're taking the deck that I really prefer, and we'll speed through the beginning. Though it is worth noting, Heirloom is so strong with the early game that we are going to watch some of what he does. Notice he goes for his 6 farm double tier 2 opener. Why? It's because he wants to push into me with a mole, which we're going to see here in a second. Because Squirrel Mole is such a powerful timed attack, especially early game, when I just cannot reinforce my own army as fast as he can reinforce his with this mole, which is going to give him an advantage in this attack, and all he needs to do is kill my squirrels, or my pigs. Unfortunately for him, I got this really good concave engage where a lot of my units were spread out. So the first wave I survive, and I'm happy I'm up a little bit. And so I'm thinking, a little tired. I probably want to get an expansion, because I can defend both of them with the same amount of defense, because there's no entry point here. But Heirloom, other ideas. He wants to attack right now, and we're gonna have to try to hold this. Our units are spaced out well, but it's not gonna be enough. That those moles, right, doing critical damage to that Warren. The Warren's gonna go down, and he can just keep on the pressure, but I cannot reinforce my army anymore as quickly as he can, because I simply don't have my own mole spawning. But I did manage to sneak out a tier 2, which is why our army value was kind of lower than his in the first place. But he gets 2 pigs. So overall, our opponent is happy, because he simply killed 2 pigs, which is way more important than some of the army that he lost. But now this is important. We spent our time buying a mill and a tier 2. He spent his time going for a tier 1 push. If he does not get tier 2, the next time we fight, I will have Squirrel Skunk versus his Squirrel, and he will die a horrible death. So he is forced to move to tech into tier 2 now. I know this, which is why I went ahead and put 3 extra farms down, because I knew that he's not going to go for another attack. And so this is now a time to breathe and a time to put down tier 3, because you know your opponent cannot attack right away. Now Heirloom, super strong, decides to tech into a wolf himself, even a little bit before me. I scouted now, as opposed to scouting it ahead of time. So this is pretty much the situation we were faced with, and now I'm just gonna start putting down wire, right? As soon as I saw the wolf, I knew that he wasn't going to attack into me until that wolf was ready. So I go super greedy and try to fill up my whole mill. And if you look at the army graph, it's equal. We both have a very little army, right? Like I just have 1 tier 1 Warren, 1 skunk. He just has 2 tier 2 Warrens and 1 tier 2 Warren and 2 tier 1 Warrens. We're keeping our army low because we're both in a race to eco as fast as we can, because we both collectively know that neither of us wants to attack right now. And if you know that, you can be as greedy as you want to be. So once this wolf gets out, I'm gonna want to first buff my other tier 2, my other tier 3, to get it out as fast as I can. And then I'm gonna want to buff my farms to get as much eco as I can. That's typically the order of operations here that you should be taking. But even though I don't think he's gonna attack, I can't guarantee that he won't. So I can't just sell all my units. This is already a very greedy approach, because if he did attack right now, I could potentially be in a lot of trouble. But one of the nice things about having wire, and a lot of it, is even if I'm at my other mill, or I'm building something somewhere else, or I'm scouting, I will know when he wants to initiate an attack, because I'll get an alert that he's touched my wire. And that gives me enough time to run back and save my units before any of them get picked off. So, my fox is now out. And so if he does choose to attack me, I should be okay. I wolf buffed my owl warren a little bit, and then I went ahead and moved my wolf over to my mill to get the best utility out of it. If you look, Erlu has been doing that to his own farms the entire time. It's the best use of the wolf while you're not attacking. Like, what's the point of having wolf buffed units if you're not going to use them, right? So until the attack comes into our engagement, it's best to leave your wolf just handling your money. Now, I am now putting my wolf towards my units because I just have a feeling he's going to attack now. It feels like a time of just when a push is going to happen. And sure enough, Erlu, he starts gearing up for the attack. And let's see how it goes. What is going to happen to someone who tries to push in to our little base? So I get the alert. He's pushing through wire. I got some skunk gas put on ahead of time. And now take a look at this. Erlu, with wolf buffed cams, is chasing down my tier 3. So I am forced to retreat as fast as I can. So here we go. Still got all my tier 3. Right? He tried to take down my fox. Focus fired it, but we were able to retreat it. And I am just pulling them back as fast as I can. You can see Erlu is trying to force my fox to die. He does end up getting it, but at the cost of his whole army. And now I have a wolf and he doesn't. Funny enough, we also paid for a fox, and it started building before we lost our second fox warren. Which means, even though we already have, even though we had a fox and only one warren, it was still building another fox. So we could have potentially had 2 foxes, 1 fox warren. It's kind of funny. But nope, I'm just focused on preventing another attack. Erlu forced to slow down out of the wolf to go for a tier 1 attack right now. And we're going to go ahead and use this cliff abuse. Right, our owl gives us vision. We know he wants to attack in right now. But before he can get to us, we can just inflict so much damage on an army that simply cannot deal with wolf buff skunks and triple tier 3. And he's going to have to throw in the tap because there's nothing left for him. We're going to be able to march down the board with the micro that we learned in game 1 and absolutely destroy him. So, one last game for you folks. We've got Needtoseethis, and we do need to see this. This time we've got Deep Sea. I'm here for some revenge. We've got another game. And we have something that I don't like. A lot of open space and a second area to attack me. So, I'm very afraid here. But we're gonna do our best to make it happen. As always, we'll brush past the opening because that's not the most constructive part of information to impart on you guys here. But both of us choosing to go for some pretty standard openers. This time, Sasha is taking a badger against us. So we haven't looked at how our triple 2-3 jack interacts against a badger composition. But we're about to find out. I elect to go for a second gristmill immediately, and that's because it's so easy to defend. in comparison to my mill. Like the wire that I would put down to defend my original mill is the same wire I would put down to defend my secondary mill. So because it won't be more expensive to defend both of them, I opt to do that. And we're both scouting each other, putting down a lot of farms. So that's why he got so greedy. He saw me put down all my farms, so he put down all of his. I actually slowed down to try to go for some kind of skunk push. But he has turret, which is such a strong defensive tool. I even end up losing a squirrel while I'm just kind of peacocking, trying to scare him into maybe not being as effective with his money by maybe attacking or putting down more tier 1 excessively. But I put down a wolf, and as it builds, I want to distract my opponent, try to prevent the scout. He ended up getting it, right? So he's gonna come home and put down after this attack, after he defends it, he's gonna put down a badger. But the most effective part of this attack was not that we won. We didn't, right? We didn't get any pigs, and we lost all of our squirrels. What we bought ourselves was time. Time where I will have tier 3 and he won't, right? Because he had to deal with that attack before he could put down that warren, and that's a big deal. Trying to maximize our kind of plus time in the game, right? Time where we are spending it better than our opponent is really important, and one of the ways that we manage to do that is by either taking attacks or trying to distract them with our commander while we scout, or pretending to attack and then going back home. But then once they scout, the jig's pretty much up. So we're gonna go for our triple tier 3. This wolf's about to pop, and we're gonna do the most effective thing that we can do with the wolf, and that is have it pay for our eco. So you'll notice I move my units away from the wolf because I don't want its wolf buff to be waste on my units. There's no attack occurring right now. No, I want it to buff my farms, and I also want it to buff my fox warren so that my fox comes out faster. So that's exactly what's happening. And I'm even ecoing up. I haven't scouted. I need to when I can, but I kind of just have to manage my wolf buffing the correct stuff. So I look out. I see all these pigeons. I'm like, all right. You know, the badger's coming. We're probably going to get a time push. And here it comes. The badger comes out. And this is the best time for Sasha to attack me. So here they come. I know that they're coming, so I'm putting down as much wire as I can. And here comes the engagement. And the time it takes them to get through my wire, we're going to get some small wins. Get some skunk gas on that tier 1. Reduce the number that they have. And now my wolf is buffing my fox. Notice I'm constantly moving. I'm not staying in one place, right? I'm backing up. I'm moving around. You don't want to be a stationary target when you're playing triple tier 3, ever. But because the skunk gas dealt with a lot of the tier 1, we were able to deal with it relatively quickly. And now, aside from these pigeons, it's pretty much just this badger. And the badger can get revved. But once it starts taking some serious damage, it has to retreat. And so it can't actually continue its rev. We're successfully defending by retreating right back into our territory where there's just too many things to target. It's too hard to focus fire our tier 3. And if he actually tried to commander focus fire our tier 3, we would commander snipe him and win the game. Because a dead commander is a dead game. And now, look, our triple tier 3 is strongest defending and kiting and cleaning up. So on the chase and on the kite is kind of where our units thrive. So we now have our full triple tier 3 deck out, even 2 owls to boot now. And our opponent's gonna come in again. And one of the ways that we're gonna find success here is by defending into our territory. So look, we keep the stronghold as long as we can, but when we need a kite, we start kiting. And now look at this from our perspective. We are going to dance around our own mill so that our mill kind of tanks and takes attention away from our tier 3 as we're able to dispense attacks. And if you look at his army. My army value, it's exactly the same. Why? I only have a couple units. So as long as they stay alive, my army value will never decrease. But him? My fox is constantly doing damage. My skunk is slowly trickling down any tier 1s on the ground. Those mice, providing the perfect distraction. And watch what happens if this badger gets too close. We're dancing around, badger gets close, badger gets sniped. And we survived by dancing around our mill. Our last stronghold. And we got the win. And that's the power of triple tier 3, man. One of the most fun games, decks to have. Because you're just running around with super fast tier 3. Like, who doesn't want that? It's very effective. And you can defend. Wire, squirrel, and skunk can defend against a lot of different situations. Not if someone, anticipates you and brings some kind of counter deck. You could end up in a lot of deep trouble. But for a standard deck, you're going to have so much success. People are either going to push into you, overextend, and then you can just mow them down when the tier 3 pop. They might go for eco, but they might over eco. And when you go and attack, they just don't have the army value to contend with you. They might not buy the proper units to best kind of fight against what you're bringing to the table. There's so many ways for them to go wrong. Whereas us, wire up, get some farms, get our triple tier 3, go out, take them out. It's so easy, so fun. But at the same time, it's so hard. The plan is easy, but the execution, that's where the finesse is. And then, of course, the kiting and the chasing and the timing, that's all up to you. You got to make sure you get it right. But this is my favorite, one of my favorite decks. It's definitely the most double-edged, most dangerous deck I've ever run, and I've chosen to use it in my time of need. Like I said, whenever my back's up against the wall or I want to surprise someone really bad, this is the deck that I choose to go for. And I've had so much success. It's won me so many tournament games. And I hope that it can win you some games as well. So, it's been a pleasure, folks. This is Meek. I'll see you in the next one.